Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Kindling Dating YouTube channel. I'm Eimear, your straight talking dating coach, and today I'm chatting with Lindsey Hall, who is a intimacy and empowerment coach, and she specializes around people that are thinking about divorce, going through the messy bits of divorce, and have come out the other side of divorce, and all things of just making you live your fullest life, even when there's bumps along the road. Is that fair to say, Lindsey?
Yes, definitely. It can be tricky to describe what I do, but generally, yes, it's about like deepening an intimacy with yourself and with others. And so that definitely shows up in the dating realm.
Mm.
And yeah, really like owning your power and living a life that you really love.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those pieces come into it.
And how did you get into this?
I got divorced about 3.5 years ago ish.
Mhm.
And as part of my post-divorce mess, I went to start getting coaching. And after about 9 months in coaching, I went, oh, this is like making a massive difference in my life. Like, this is absolutely huge. I'm really jealous of my coach getting to watch this transformation in me and knowing that she's played a part in it. Like, obviously, I'm the one doing the work, but
Mhm.
she's been such a catalyst in this change process. I want to do that too. I want to
Yeah.
help other people like realize that all of your life can change if you start doing this inner work.
Yeah.
That was really the point. And at that point, various people had started saying to me, have you thought about coaching? Have you thought about it? And I was like, okay, okay, get the message.
The universe is telling you.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that it's like the personal experience that you're like, actually, this would be a really nice thing for me to experience. And like
Yeah,
the other side of
definitely.
it. That's really nice. Um, and intimacy and empowerment, they're like intricately linked, really, aren't they? The two.
I think so. So I really think that we spend so much of our life, especially those of us who are socially conditioned as women, getting told to sort of disconnect from ourselves and from our bodies and from our intuition. And that leaves us feeling disempowered and
Mm.
feeling like, the outside world matters more than we matter. And so by doing this intimacy work, and when I say intimacy, I don't just mean sexual. I know people think of that. And yes,
Yeah.
that is definitely a part of it that I'm here for, but it's like by no means the biggest part. Intimacy means like intimate knowledge of yourself and your inside stuff.
Mm.
And then so really getting close to what your body needs, to your own intuition, to trusting yourself, all of that is then what leads to this more empowered feeling, owning
Yeah.
your power and being like, this is who I am. I get to own this.
Yeah. That's maybe because with dating, I will get into this a bit more, but I find like one of the things that causes people to get stuck is that they're just really in their own heads. And almost online dating kind of disconnects you further from humans. So there's more space to just go, oh, I don't like this person because of this, this, and this, or they didn't like me. What does that mean? And it's all just this narrative that goes around in your head. Um,
Mhm.
so I love that like just that intimacy with yourself can break you out of that, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. I used to be one of those people who would, I'd buy the professional overthinker t-shirts and overthink literally everything, whether it was like a purchase I wanted to make or an interaction with a human or whatever. And really, since getting into this and just getting more in touch with myself and trusting myself, it doesn't mean I never overthink anymore, but
Yeah.
it has significantly diminished because I can just say the thing I want to say because I trust that it's coming from a good place, or I can send the text that I want to send. And, I've done so much work around like, oh, if it doesn't land well with that person, it's probably more to do with it didn't land well with them as opposed to I did something wrong when I sent it. And
Mm.
it can really take the self-doubt out of the equation in a lot of cases, which makes life so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I think I need to act a little bit more in that zone. As much as I try, I'm definitely not there all the time.
An
And
ongoing journey.
yeah. And then you kind of specifically focus around the divorce. I know how you called it mess. Tell me a bit more about that in terms of who you work with.
Yeah, so it's divorce is very much in my experience like a life-changing event. And I heard this from so many people that there was like a pre-divorce and a post-divorce phase of their life. And not just in terms of the relationship, but just in terms of, as it was for me, this like awakening moment, which sounds so cliche to me, but like it really just makes you go, oh, I need to re-examine things. Like this whole life that I thought I had pictured has suddenly changed. And so it made me look at how I was showing up in relationships. And then looking at that also made me look at how I was showing up in wider relationships and in life in general. And it just was this big snowball effect. Like it wasn't just my marriage that ended. It was this like, I'm suddenly re-examining literally everything in my life. And so many other people had told me that too. And so I wanted to, but on the flip side of that, so for loads of people, it can be this like big take it and turn it into something great. But there's also so many people who it just was pretty soul destroying. I mean, and even like my parents got divorced 20 years ago now. And when I was telling my dad what I was going through, my dad still holds on to all of this stuff from 20 years ago. And he's like, man, I would pay so much money to be where you are now, like 2 years out from your divorce, whereas I'm nowhere near that, 20 years out from mine. And so it can really, so many people can just, it can break them, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I very much wanted this to be yeah, this is a massive event. Turn it into something good. Like do something with it and make it this positive change rather than letting it destroy you.
Yeah. And I guess actually kind of similar to like, so what I hear quite a lot from people that are single and, potentially have never been married and they've been single for a long time, but they're the only single one left in their group. If you're the only, and they find that kind of lonely and they don't really have anyone to talk to, I guess that's the same on the other side. If you're the only couple that are going through divorce within your group, then that must feel like, oh, I can't really talk to people about it. So having somebody to hold your hand through it must be amazing.
Absolutely that. And yes, divorce is quite common, as we all know. But yeah, I was very much the first one of anybody I knew in my close people to get divorced. So nobody else, although they wanted to be there for me, they didn't really know how. And a lot of them, they were trying, but it actually ended up really unhelpful. Stuff like they might be slagging off my ex and getting angry at him. And I didn't want that. Like that wasn't what I needed, but it's kind of what you see in the movies and pop culture. And it's what people feel, it's like, oh, down on him and like, Team Lindsey all the way. And it was like, yeah, but actually it's more nuanced than that. And it's really complicated. And like, I messed up in these ways. And they jump in and go, don't blame yourself. And like, it's not blaming myself. It's taking accountability and knowing what I want to change. And they, like I said, they were trying, but they just didn't get it as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so once I had my coach to turn to, and I was like, oh, here's a productive place to process this stuff. Here's somebody who it's not just the raw emotions, and I'm not getting emotions back. I'm getting, okay, so let's look at that. What would you like to do differently next time? How can we change that? Like, it just got to be, it was somebody who was that step removed. I didn't feel like I needed to hide anything from my coach because they knew my ex personally. I also didn't feel like I needed to defend him. Like it was just a really safe place to kind of unpick all those pieces and go, how do I move forward without the emotions of people being like, ah.
And it's so funny because I think like people probably wouldn't necessarily make that connection in between, somebody that's been single for a long time and never married, but they say the exact same thing of like when I talk to my friends, they either like, you're amazing, don't worry, everyone else's shit, it's their fault, or you're giving like really unproductive advice is how somebody termed it. Is like you're talking about what dating was like, 15 years ago before apps existed. It's different now.
And I have definitely found that. So that all of that stuff was true when I was going through the divorce, which is why I want to coach people to that bit. And then to segue into the dating bit, absolutely that. Like, so again, because my friends haven't been through this, so they're all telling me about their dating stuff from when they were 20, drunk in the club. That's how I met my ex too. Like I got that part. That's not what I want to do as a like, mid to late 30s grown up with children who is more intentional about life these days.
You're not going to go out and get the boots with the spurs and the Reeboks with the whatever that song is.
Yeah, not my preferred method these days. No.
I actually can't think of anything worse, to be honest.
I know. But I will say, yeah, early on, my friend, we went to Pop World, which is the 90s club in Sheffield, which I absolutely love, but is not the place to meet men. Anytime they are loitering around Pop World, I know I'm there too, obviously, at that point, but I can pretty much eliminate them from the list of possibilities.
I think I went to a hen party in someplace pretty similar in Newcastle, and I can literally picture it.
Yeah, great place for you and your girlfriends. Not so great for like actual romantic events.
I mean, love blooms in the strangest places. Um, so on to dating. How is dating different after divorce?
So there will definitely be loads of overlap. So I talk about dating after divorce, and I do get lots of people coming on who are not dating, or sorry, who are not divorced and are still looking for the person. They go, it's the same for me. I'm like, yeah, I know there's lots of overlap here, but there's also some kind of key differences in that. Um, and I want to say here too, when I mean divorce, I don't necessarily only mean legal divorce. You don't have to be legally married and divorced. It can be
Mhm.
long-term partnership and the breakup, because all of that stuff is the same.
Yeah,
The emotions are
yeah.
the same behind it. Um, but so there's a lot of like, yeah, you had built a life with somebody, whether it was a couple year marriage or a very long marriage. You
Mm.
went into this partnership probably thinking it was going to be for life. So there's a whole bunch of processing to do around that, and a whole bunch of wounds and scars and hard stuff that you don't want to carry into your
Mm.
next relationship. So being able to separate and to look back on like, okay, so what happened there? What do I want to do differently? How do I want to show up in this new relationship? And when you're dating in the new relationship, that old stuff sneaks back in a lot, whether it's like something your new partner does that triggers you from your old partner, and you're like, you always do that. And actually, they don't always do it. They just did it once, but it had happened, but the other person. Or it's your stuff when you're like, you jump into it, the old way of reacting to things, and you're like, oh, wait, this isn't how I want to react anymore.
Mm.
So there's lots of that. Um, there's also like logistically, a lot more people have kids by this point. Certainly not everybody, but so dating when you've got kids involved can be logistically more of a challenge, but also just emotionally. And there's
Mm.
all kinds of factors around that, like depending on how old your kids are and how much you have custody and all of the things. But it can definitely be a bit, it adds an extra element to it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And I think as well, actually, even before that bit, is the so many people, one of the most common things I hear coming out of divorce is people feeling like they've lost themselves in the process. Like they just don't even know who they are anymore, whether it was conscious or unconscious in the marriage. But so I don't always mean like, a controlling partner who is like, you can't listen to that music you want. Just when you are in a long term relationship like that, you tend to watch the shows you both want to watch, and you spend your evenings doing the things together, and just it can be so easy to just sort of lose sight of who you
Yeah.
are. So you come out of it and you're like, I don't even know who I am or what I want or where I'm going. How am I supposed to date at this point? So finding yourself again first before trying to like see who you're a match with.
Yeah, yeah. And even like you mentioned about kids, I think even becoming a mother, you lose a lot of who you are in that. So then, and to find yourself, maybe you rely on your partner, build it within that, and then that gets taken away as well. Like it must be just from under your feet goes a little bit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I definitely had that moment after my first child was born, and then after my second, and then the divorce, and it was like, I used to be fun. I'm really sure I used to be a fun person. I'm just not sure how to do that anymore.
Yeah. I'm in the two little toddlers, so I'm still in the where, who am I?
Yeah.
um, but yeah, and then so like obviously logistically, like navigating with kids, is there any kind of easier ways to navigate or tips or tricks, or is it just everyone kind of has to find their own way?
I think it really, yeah, I don't think there are any overarching rules. one of my best friends told me that she was Googling when to introduce her kids to her new partner. And I was like, stop using Google. Google doesn't know you or your kids or your partner. That's not the answer. Because there is no right answer. And so this is again where like it comes down to the intimacy work with yourself and not relying on like, oh, well, this is when most people do it, or like every relationship is different. You know your kids, like you've got to know yourself. And so yeah, and making sure that both you and the person you're dating are comfortable with it. And if they've got kids, you guys might be on different timelines. So you might want to introduce them to your kids before they want to introduce you to theirs, or vice versa.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no one size fits all. I really think it comes down to trusting yourself and making none of it right and none of it wrong, and just going, we're gonna find our path and find what works for us.
Yeah. I love that as well, how you said about you guys might be on different timelines, because I think generally in relationships, there's this pressure that we need to get onto the same timeline and hit the markers of, whatever it is, moving in together or the first trip away together. And obviously having kids is the next, like when we introduce those. And it's absolutely fine that you do one 6 months before the other. That's fine. I
Yeah.
love that, because I think we would tend to, I think people would be like, well, you've introduced me to your kids, I better introduce you to my kids.
It doesn't have to work that way. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm I'm dating somebody right now and I've met his kids and he hasn't met mine, and we're both okay with that.
Yeah.
That's just what we're doing.
I love that. I guess it comes back to like that really open and honest communication as well, and trusting yourself, like you said at the start, that you just say the thing that you want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and communicating with each other about just the reasons behind it, or because if one person takes that as a, oh, you're not as serious about a relationship as I am, and it doesn't necessarily mean any of that. And but you've got your own parenting styles, and just we are all different, and we all have our own internal stuff that we're still working through too. So it's okay to be different, but the communication I think is really, really key.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. So general logistics challenges of dating, like online, not online, when do you book the babysitter? Is like how do you navigate all of that?
Yeah, so when we first split up, I was the primary caregiver of my kids, and that was the case for almost the first 2 years, really. Which actually worked out pretty well because I was so not ready to date. And again, like everybody after divorce has their own timeline. So
Yeah.
again, please don't Google when to start dating after divorce, because Google doesn't know shit about this. Everybody's got their own timeline. But for me, I really like went inward and did so much of this work first.
Yeah.
And I had two very young kids, and I was the primary caregiver. Like they were with me all the time. So
Mm.
all of that meant like I'm just not dating right now for the first 2 years. And then when we switched, I was starting to feel ready to date, probably, maybe, was thinking about it kind of thing. Um, at the time that we were switching to 50-50. So I was able to go, okay, I think I went my first couple dates before we went to 50-50. And so I had to get babysitters for those nights. And for me, it added an extra layer of stress, but I knew that the 50-50 change was coming. So I went,
Okay, yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
going to pause this until then, because then I'll be able to date without having to feel like, and without the extra layer of somebody else involved. That obviously doesn't work for everybody. Loads of people
Yeah.
don't 50-50 parent. You might be the only parent in the picture and not have that option. So then there's everybody again will have their own way to navigate it. But yeah, babysitters, swapping with family. Although I do know, again, if you're the only parent in the picture, swaps don't really work. Like my friends would babysit for me, and I couldn't babysit back because I couldn't leave the kids.
Yeah.
So it is just about bringing in help, but also thinking about the way that you date. It doesn't all have to be nighttime things. It could be you do more of daytime things. You get somebody to help out during the day and go on dates then, or there's again, no one size fits
Yeah.
all, but
Yeah.
definitely recognizing that it can be a lot harder.
Yeah. Actually, I think daytime dates are great. Like I love a walking date because it just takes away that like interview style of being stuck across the table in a bar.
Oh yeah.
And I think it can get you to a connection a lot quicker. So
And again,
that's
with
good.
kind of the way that, yeah, the way that dating had gone way back when I first did it versus now, like, and everybody will have their own date style, but I don't think for any of my first dates did I do like a go out and get a drink.
Mm,
Like I don't drink on first dates. So I've done some meals, but even then that's the minority. I prefer to not sit across the table in an interview
yeah,
style. I prefer to like, yeah, do something.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I think that's is one of the things like if you are trying to just be like, oh, I'm dating again, so it must therefore be like what dating was like when I did it pre-marriage, which let's say was 15, 20 years ago. It is different. It's like you're a different person, you're more mature. But also the scene has changed, I think, a lot as well. So yeah, go for a walk, going for coffees and just more casual, I think is quite
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
It can also be like another thing with the kids is that the sort of unfortunate truth is that like if you're co-parenting and the person you're dating is co-parenting, if your schedules don't match up, that can end up being a deal breaker. Like I've heard that from lots of
Yeah.
people where it's like if we have every other weekend, but they're conflicting weekends, no matter how great I think you are, it's just not gonna work. Like we're
Yeah.
just not gonna be able to meet up. Um, so, and equally, if you're on the same schedule, it's like, oh, big bonus point in your direction. Like this has at least has a starting place. So stuff like that, that when you're like kid free or it can be more spontaneous, that wouldn't even come up. But there's definitely been people where we never even got a chance to get started because our schedules just conflicted and it was like,
Mm,
oh, you're always have your kids and I don't, and vice versa.
yeah.
Let's not bother.
Yeah. And then I guess like in terms of online profiles, you would put up that you have kids and be quite open about that up front, or how do you
I
handle
do. There's for me, it's very much my kids are a massive part of my life, and if I want you to know straight away,
it?
I've never had the experience of people not wanting to date me because I'm a mom. So
Yeah.
some people will say that that's a barrier, and they've felt that. I honestly have never had a single person be like, "Oh wait, you've got kids? No, thank you." Um, and I think part of that is just because I am energetically not available for that. Like, don't bother talking to me if you have an issue with the fact that I have kids. So on my dating profile, I don't want to put my kids' faces on. So I've got a picture of like I'm hugging them and you can see the backs of their heads,
Yeah.
which also gives you an idea of how old they are. And I've got two girls, like, so you kind of know that, but without me having to then
That's
say
really
it.
nice. Yeah.
Um, and therefore it's never been an issue. Equally, you don't have to put a picture up and it doesn't have to be on your profile. But for me, it would come up pretty much immediately in
Yeah.
conversation because even if I'm not trying to talk about them, they just come up a lot like, oh, sorry, I can't chat because I've got the girls this weekend. Like there would be no hiding it. And I wouldn't want
Yeah.
to.
I feel like every conversation I have comes back to kids now.
Yeah. I've had some like what I consider old school methods. Like people tell me, like, oh no, don't bring the kids up until later on. Like, you
Mm,
want to hide your crazy. Don't mention the kids. And I'm like, well, first of all, my kids aren't my crazy. I mean, they are, but but like my kids aren't baggage. I don't want to hide that.
yeah.
And yeah, second of all, I don't want to waste time getting to know you if you're then going to go, kids are a problem. And same, if we've been chatting a while and it's like, date 3 or 4 or like, week 2 of chatting and you only then mention you got kids, I'd be like, whoa,
Yeah.
that came out of left field. Like, why were you holding back on that? So yeah, I say go for it.
Cool. And then I always like to ask people how they met their current partner, and I think we might know the answer.
I actually did not meet my current partner online.
Ah,
Yeah, so I've
intriguing.
been doing the online dating stuff and met really great people that way. I've had honestly truly great experiences.
Mm,
Um, but I was taking a break from online dating because it does, I find that it can feel tiring after a while. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, I'm just swiping for the sake of it. And I just actually didn't care at all. So it's like, all right, recognize when it's time to take a little step back. And then after I took this little mental break from dating, I was at a friend's barbecue and my friend's other single friend was there.
Ah,
And
old school, me cute.
and it was a kids' Easter egg hunt actually. So his kids were there, my kids were there. So when I said that we hadn't met, they have technically all met, but it wasn't in a we're dating
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so my kids are barely aware he even existed because kids don't care about random grown-ups.
No, not when you're looking for chocolate.
Yeah. um, so yeah, it was an old school in person got asked out kind of situation
Love that. Yeah.
and they say sometimes like when you least expect it, which yeah, I didn't see it coming, but I was so totally in like I was just being me and having fun. And these are like some of my best friends. So I was, fully my me self. And it's not then surprising that somebody finds that attractive because I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I was looking like it was just like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be in it. And that's sexy.
Yeah, just yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I quite find as well like that when you've kind of done that kind of work of like, right, I'm ready today, I'm open, and I've dealt with the skeletons in the closet and stuff. Um, and then you've kind of had this good experience of online dating that's maybe giving you a bit of energy, and then you attract it outside in real
yeah,
life. And it's I feel like there's something in like all of it kind of coming together. Like,
definitely. So I very much believe in the power of our own brains and of manifestation of law of attraction. And I was taking a break from online dating, and I kind of thought this probably isn't my time for like actual like big meaningful relationships. But I had never been asked out in real life. It
mhm,
never happened. And I thought like, even though I think that maybe this isn't like the time to be pursuing a relationship, I also wasn't like, I want to be alone. Yeah, I was very much open to this. And
yeah.
in my journaling, like literally the week before, I had written my like desires list and I had wanted to be asked out by somebody who I actually wanted to go out with,
Mhm.
like in person over the Easter break. That was on my list. And then a week later, I got asked out in person by
Ah.
somebody I wanted to say yes to. And I was like,
Okay, I
thank
need to put
you.
more journaling prompts into Kindling Dating.
Yeah, it can be powerful.
Yeah, I love that. Like literally manifestation, universe, all your work that you've done, everything just aligning along with an Easter bunny.
Yep.
Okay. And speaking of aligning, so we are going to do some work together.
Yay!
Yeah. Lindsey is launching a dating after divorce course, not coach, course, on Kindling, which we've been plotting for a while, haven't we?
We have. I'm so excited it's finally coming together.
And you've been putting lots of little teasers out on your social of your plan and your process, and I love it. I just can't wait to see it.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I was going to say I want to do the course myself, but I'm not sure what Sam will think about that.
It's a foreshadowing of some sort.
No, no, no. Although I have also just written an article on how I don't believe in the idea of the one. So
We have some thoughts on that.
yeah, no, well, I think he agrees with me actually that like yeah, there's different ones, and it kind of depends on the time and space when you meet which one, and
Yep.
then it depends on everything else that goes on, how long that lasts or doesn't last, and it's like just because they were the one that you married and had kids with and then you divorced doesn't mean they're not the one anymore, and it doesn't mean there isn't another one. It just means there's a different one for a different time.
Yeah. There can
Might
be
be.
lots of ones.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Can you give us a sneak peek on your 6 week course? What can people expect?
Oh, yes, it is. It was challenging to put together because I had it all. I don't have a whiteboard, so I had a big piece of kids' craft paper rolled out and it's like, how do I fit like everything that I know about relationships and dating after divorce into a 6 week program? Turns out I know a lot about it and it's hard to cram it all in. But I have done my best to condense it down. So yeah, it sort of walks you through a lot of different stuff in that time, but including like reflecting on your past and releasing your past relationship and forgiveness of what's gone before, really boosting your confidence now and kind of coming back into that intimacy with yourself, a bunch of stuff around that. We go into how to communicate more and what to do when the old stuff comes up. And there's a whole week dedicated to heartbreak and to dating with an open heart, because again, one of the biggest things is you come and you go, well, that really sucked. Like, divorce was awful and my heart got shattered and I don't want to do that again. Like, why would I go out there and do that? So we talk about it, because I can't pretend that doesn't exist. And then each week is a mix of like mindset and sort of energetic stuff, as well as practical. We talk about like your dating profile online, other ways to do it, how to get yourself set up for a date. And there's a lot of really good stuff in there.
Hey, I can't wait. So everyone stay tuned. Early November is going to be your chance to join with Lindsey.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any final takeaways for people before we wrap up?
Don't think so, other than just to say that like this whole, I mean, the dating world is crazy, the divorcing stuff is crazy, dating after divorce is crazy. And honestly, having somebody there to hold your hand and guide you through it, and who's been there and done it and understands and wants to do it in a better way, like, it is just absolutely invaluable. And so if you're like, oh, I just, I'm tired of going it alone, you don't have to go it alone. Reach out, get some support.
Yeah, get in touch. I'll put all Lindsey's details down the bottom. And there'll be a blog on Kindling as well, sharing what we've talked about. And yeah, stay tuned to both Kindling Dating and Lindsey Hall Coaches socials, because we'll be teasing out when we're launching in early November, and we can't wait. Yay!
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Cool. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.